All right, it's time to talk about how you're going to finish your sweater, the bottom of your sweater, the cuffs of your sleeves, the bottom, and the ribbing around the bottom of the body. The pattern calls for a knit one, purl one ribbing, only about 1.5 inches long. So that's what I've got here, and it works just fine. But sometimes if you want the sweater to lay so it doesn't pull in at the bottom, but so that it lays nice and flat, you might want to try a different option for how you're going to do the ribbing of the body. One of the possibilities is to do a ribbing anyway, but to split it at the side seams so that you have a front ribbing and a back ribbing. And one of the benefits of that is you can make the back ribbing just a little bit longer than the front ribbing. It gives a very different look to the sweater. It lays differently when you wear it. And for me, it has a much more casual appearance, I think, than if the ribbing had been attached. One of the benefits of it is it lays flat. It doesn't pull around your hips or around the bottom of the sweater. Another option, which I like, is to do a seed stitch around the bottom of your sweater. The seed stitch lays flat. It doesn't pucker. So when you're wearing this sweater, it lays straight down and it has a drape, but it doesn't pull in around the base of the sweater. I like to use the rib stitch around the bottom of the sweater, but I do like to do a ribbing around the sleeve of my sweater because I want the sleeve of the sweater to gather in. I don't want it to lay straight. I want it to pull in so I have a cuff around my wrist. But for the bottom of my sweater, I kind of prefer not having it pull in, and maybe that's just because I'm a little heavier than I'd like to be and I don't want to show off that feature. So I like to have the seed stitch. Now, one of the things I'm going to show you is how to bind off loosely. Now, you can see the edge of this bind off. Let's see if we can get this to focus in, all right. Yep. There we go. So the edge of the bind off looks very nice and even, and it just is a straight little edging along the bottom. It's not super stretchy, but it is stretchy, which is important. I want it to have some body, and I want it to have some give. So this is like a middle of the road sort of thing. There's all sorts of techniques for doing a stretchy bind off or a loose bind off. And I'm just going to show you what works for me for a bind off. And you can do whatever works for you. But what I find works best for me is to, let's see, this goes here. So I'm doing the seed stitch, which is where you purl the knits and knit the purls. So this stitch is a purl stitch on my needle, which means I'm going to knit it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the two loops with my right index finger. I'm going to pull this stitch over, and then I'm going to purl the next stitch. And by doing it that way, I'm holding them so that they stay nice and loose. You can see how loose that loop is. An alternative is to use a larger size needle, but I tend to be too lazy and don't want to go looking for a larger size needle. So all I'm doing is, as I'm knitting and purling here, I am holding the stitches so they don't get pulled tight, that they stay nice and loose as I'm working. And for me, that's enough that I just get a nice loose bind off. Another technique you could do for the bind off is to take the stitch. Now the next stitch I want to do here is going to be a purl, so I'm pulling my yarn in front. Put the stitch back on the needle and then purl, and then pull that through. And that has the same effect as what we've been doing, but it helps keep that stitch loose. So my next stitch is going to be a knit, so I'm going to put this back on, and I'm just going to knit through that, pull it through there, and it's off. So put the stitch back on, purl through both stitches, put the stitch back on, knit through both stitches, put this, let me put this there, put the stitch back on, purl through both stitches, yeah. Now let me put this back on here. And this is what I've done with that new step, and this is what I've done before that, and there's not a whole lot of difference. They look pretty much the same. Basically, by putting the stitch on the needle and then working through the needle, what I'm doing there is I'm combining the step where I would pull this stitch over. I'm just doing that automatically as I'm working. All right, so let me real quick finish these stitches up and I'll show you how I end the bind off.